Honor, my husband is a criminal," the stepmother cried, wiping fake tears. The judge nodded, ready to sentence the innocent father. "If there are no further witnesses," he began. Suddenly, the heavy courtroom doors slammed open. 4 tiny, identical boys stood there, breathing hard, holding hands with their crying maid. The stepmother's face turned ghostly pale. "Stop!" the maid shouted. "She is lying!" But before we dive into the full story, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. Now subscribe to the channel and let's get started. "Daddy, do you think Mommy can see us from heaven?" Robert Williams opened his eyes. The morning sun came through the white curtains of his bedroom. He turned his head and saw his son Marcus standing by the bed. Marcus was 5 years old. His brown eyes looked serious. Robert sat up slowly. He looked at the photograph on his nightstand. It showed a beautiful black woman with a bright smile. Her name was Angela. She was Robert's first wife. She died 3 years ago. "Yes, Marcus," Robert said quietly. "I think Mommy sees everything we do." Before Robert could say more, 3 other boys ran into the bedroom. They jumped on the bed, laughing and shouting. "Daddy! Daddy! Wake up!" yelled Jason. "We are hungry," said David. Kevin, the youngest by a few minutes, crawled onto Robert's lap and hugged him. Robert smiled. His heart felt warm. These 4 boys were his whole world. Marcus, Jason, David, and Kevin were quadruplets. They were born on June 12, 2018. They all had the same birthday, but they were very different. Marcus was the leader. Jason was the quiet one. David loved to make jokes. Kevin loved to sing. Okay, Robert laughed. "Let Daddy get up. Go downstairs. Miss Grace is making breakfast." The boys ran out of the room, screaming and laughing. Robert stood up and stretched. He walked to the window. He looked out at his big white mansion on Sunset Boulevard in Beverly Hills, California. He was 42 years old. He owned a real estate company. He built houses and buildings. He was worth $40 million. But money did not make him happy. His sons made him happy. Robert put on jeans and a gray shirt. He walked downstairs. The smell of pancakes filled the air. He heard singing coming from the kitchen. It was Grace. Grace Turner stood at the stove, flipping pancakes. She was 58 years old with short gray hair and kind eyes. She wore jeans and a yellow shirt. She hummed a gospel song while she cooked. Grace had worked for Robert for 10 years. She started working when Angela was still alive. After Angela died, Grace became like a mother to the boys. "Good morning, Miss Grace," Robert said. Grace turned around and smiled. "Good morning, Robert. Sit down. Breakfast is almost ready." The 4 boys sat at the kitchen table. They kicked their feet and talked loudly. "I want 3 pancakes," said David. "I want 4," said Jason. "I want syrup," said Kevin. Marcus sat quietly watching his brothers. Grace brought a big plate of pancakes to the table. She put 1 pancake on each boy's plate. Then she poured syrup on top. The boys started eating immediately. "Say thank you to Miss Grace," Robert said. "Thank you, Miss Grace," the boys said together. Grace smiled. "You are welcome, babies." Robert poured himself a cup of coffee. He sat down at the table next to his sons. He watched them eat. They had syrup on their faces. They were laughing and talking. Robert felt grateful. Then he heard footsteps on the stairs. He turned around. Victoria walked into the kitchen. Victoria Hayes was 34 years old. She had long blonde hair and green eyes. She was tall and thin. She wore a silk blue robe. Her face looked perfect. Her makeup was already done. "Good morning," Victoria said. Her voice was flat. "Good morning, honey," Robert said. He stood up and walked over to her. He kissed her on the cheek. Victoria did not smile. She looked at the boys. They were messy and loud. She frowned. "Can you boys be quieter?" Victoria said. "I have a headache." The boys stopped talking. They looked down at their plates. Grace watched Victoria from the stove. Her eyes were careful. She did not trust Victoria. She never did. Grace saw how Victoria acted when Robert was not looking. Victoria was cold. She was mean to the boys. But Grace stayed quiet. She thought it was not her place to speak. Robert did not notice. He was too happy. He smiled at Victoria and said, "Do you want some breakfast?" "No," Victoria said. "I am not hungry." She poured herself a cup of coffee and walked out of the kitchen. Grace shook her head. She walked over to the boys and wiped syrup off their faces with a napkin. "It is okay, babies," Grace whispered. "Finish your breakfast." After breakfast, Robert went to his office. The office was on the first floor of the mansion. It had a big wooden desk, a leather chair, and tall bookshelves. Robert sat down and opened his laptop. He had contracts to review. He had meetings to schedule. He worked hard every day to provide for his family. Victoria walked past the office door. She stopped and looked inside. She watched Robert work. She saw where he kept his files. She saw where he put his important papers. Her green eyes were cold and focused. She did not love Robert. She never did. She only loved his money. Victoria had researched Robert online before they met. She learned he was worth $40 million. She created a plan. She went to a charity party in downtown Los Angeles. She knew Robert would be there. She smiled at him. She said kind words. She pretended to understand his pain. Robert was lonely after Angela died. He wanted love again. He wanted a mother for his sons. Victoria used his loneliness against him. They dated for 4 months. Robert proposed. They got married 6 months ago in a small ceremony at the mansion. Now Victoria lived in the mansion. She had access to everything. She was waiting for the right moment to take what she wanted. Outside, Grace took the boys to the backyard. The backyard was big with green grass, swings, and a soccer goal. The boys ran to the swings. Grace sat on a bench and watched them. Marcus walked over to Grace. He sat down next to her. He looked serious. "Miss Grace," Marcus said quietly, "do you like Miss Victoria?" Grace looked at Marcus. She paused. She did not want to lie, but she did not want to scare him. "Why do you ask, baby?" Grace said. Marcus looked at the ground. "She is not nice to us. She yells. She does not smile. She is not like Mommy." Grace's heart hurt. She put her arm around Marcus. "I know, baby, but your daddy loves her. We have to be respectful." Marcus nodded, but his eyes were sad. Later that afternoon, Robert came outside. He kicked a soccer ball with his sons. They ran and laughed. David scored a goal and danced. Jason clapped. Kevin sang a song. Marcus smiled. These were the moments Robert lived for. That evening, the family ate dinner together. Grace made fried chicken, mashed potatoes, and green beans. The boys ate happily. Robert tried to talk to Victoria. He asked her about her day. Victoria looked at her phone. She barely answered. Grace watched from the kitchen. She felt worried. After dinner, Grace took the boys upstairs. She gave them baths. She helped them put on pajamas. She sat on Marcus's bed and read them a story about a brave knight. The boys listened carefully. When the story ended, Grace kissed each boy on the forehead. "I love you, babies," Grace said. "We love you, Miss Grace," the boys said. Grace turned off the light and closed the door. She walked downstairs. Robert and Victoria were in the living room. Robert was watching television. Victoria was on her phone. Grace said goodnight and went to her small room at the back of the house. The mansion was quiet. Robert fell asleep on the couch. Victoria looked at him. His eyes were closed. His breathing was slow. She stood up. She walked quietly to his office. She opened the door. She turned on the desk lamp. She opened the drawers. She pulled out contracts, bank statements, and company records. She stacked them on the desk. Her hands moved fast. Her face showed no emotion. Victoria looked at the papers. She smiled. "This is just the beginning," she whispered. Victoria stood in the office holding the papers. The room was dark except for the small desk lamp. She looked at Robert's signature on the contracts. She touched the papers with her long fingers. She needed to copy everything. She needed to make it perfect. Victoria took out her phone. She took pictures of every document, bank statements, business contracts, property deeds. She took 23 photos. Then she put the papers back exactly where she found them. She closed the drawers quietly. She turned off the lamp. She walked out of the office and closed the door without making a sound. Robert was still sleeping on the couch. Victoria walked past him. She went upstairs to the bedroom. She closed the door and locked it. She sat on the bed with her laptop. She opened the photos on her phone. She smiled. For the next 2 weeks, Victoria worked on her plan every night. She waited until Robert fell asleep. Then she went to his office. She used his computer when he was at work during the day. She watched him type his passwords. She learned them all. His password was Angela 2018, the year his first wife had the boys. Victoria thought that was pathetic. On the computer, Victoria downloaded a special program. The program could change documents, it could change numbers, it could copy signatures. Victoria worked slowly and carefully. She created fake bank statements. She made it look like Robert transferred $3 million to secret accounts. She created fake emails between Robert and fake business partners. She changed dates and numbers on contracts. Every morning, Victoria acted normal. She drank coffee. She ignored the boys. She kissed Robert on the cheek when he left for work. Robert thought everything was fine. He thought his new wife was adjusting to life in the mansion. But Grace saw things Robert did not see. Grace noticed that Victoria went into Robert's office often. Grace heard Victoria on the phone speaking in a quiet, angry voice. Grace saw Victoria looking at Robert with cold eyes when he was not watching. One afternoon, Grace was dusting the hallway. She saw Victoria walk into Robert's office. Grace moved closer. She stood near the door. She heard Victoria opening drawers. She heard papers moving. Grace's heart beat fast. Something was very wrong. Grace wanted to tell Robert, but what would she say? She had no proof. She only had a feeling. Grace decided to wait and watch. On September 18th, Victoria finished her plan. She had all the fake documents ready. She had fake bank statements showing Robert stole $3 million. She had fake emails. She had fake contracts. Everything looked real. That morning was a Tuesday. Robert put on a gray suit. He had a business meeting in downtown Los Angeles. He walked into the kitchen where Grace was making breakfast for the boys. "I will be back around 3 o'clock this afternoon," Robert said. He kissed Marcus, Jason, David, and Kevin on their heads. "Be good for Miss Grace." "We will, Daddy," Marcus said. Robert grabbed his briefcase and walked out the front door. Grace watched him through the window. His black car drove down Sunset Boulevard and disappeared. Victoria watched from the top of the stairs. She waited 5 minutes. Then she walked to the bedroom. She picked up her phone. Her hands were steady. She did not feel nervous. She felt excited. Victoria dialed 911. The phone rang twice. A woman's voice answered, "911, what is your emergency?" Victoria took a deep breath. Then she started crying. Her voice shook. "Please, I need help. My husband is a criminal. He stole money. I am so scared." The operator said, "Ma'am, please calm down. What is your name?" "My name is Victoria Williams. I live on Sunset Boulevard in Beverly Hills." Victoria's voice sounded terrified, but her face was calm. "My husband, Robert Williams. He stole $3 million from his company. I found the documents. I have proof." "Ma'am, are you in danger right now?" "No, he is not home. But I am scared. Please send someone. Please." The operator said, "Okay, ma'am, stay calm. Officers are on the way." Victoria hung up. She wiped her dry eyes. She walked to the bathroom. She looked in the mirror. She made her hair messy. She pinched her cheeks to make them red. She rubbed her eyes to make them look swollen. Then she went downstairs and waited. Grace was in the backyard with the boys. They were playing on the swings. Grace heard a sound. She looked toward the front of the house. A police car pulled into the driveway. The car was black and white with red and blue lights on top. Grace's stomach dropped. She told the boys to stay in the backyard. She ran to the front of the house. 2 police officers got out of the car. They were both men. One was tall with brown hair. The other was shorter with a mustache. They walked up to the front door. Grace reached the door at the same time. "Can I help you, officers?" Before they could answer, Victoria opened the door. Her face looked terrible. Her hair was messy. Her eyes were red. "Thank God you are here," Victoria said, her voice cracked. "Please come in." The officers stepped inside. Grace stood behind them. Her heart was pounding. "Mrs. Williams?" the tall officer said. "Yes," Victoria whispered. "I am Victoria Williams." "You called about your husband?" Victoria nodded. She started crying again. "I did not want to believe it, but I found documents in his office. He stole money, millions of dollars. I was looking for a phone charger and I saw papers. I looked at them. I could not believe what I was seeing." The officer with the mustache said, "Do you have these documents?" "Yes, follow me." Victoria led the officers to Robert's office. Grace followed them. Victoria opened a drawer and pulled out a folder. She handed it to the tall officer. The officer opened the folder. He looked at the papers inside. His face became serious. He looked at the other officer. They both nodded. "Where is your husband now?" the tall officer asked. "He is in his office, upstairs." "No, wait!" Victoria paused. "Actually, I think he might be there." She pointed to the office they were standing in. Grace spoke up. "Mr. Williams is not home. He went to a meeting downtown." Victoria's face flashed with anger for just 1 second. Then she put the sad expression back on. "Oh, yes, that is right. He will be home soon." The officer said, "We will wait." They waited in the living room. Victoria sat on the couch. She twisted a tissue in her hands. The officers stood by the door. Grace stood in the corner. She watched Victoria carefully. Grace knew. She knew Victoria was lying. But how could she prove it? At 3:15 in the afternoon, Robert's car pulled into the driveway. He got out carrying his briefcase. He walked toward the front door, smiling. He was thinking about playing with his sons in the backyard. Robert opened the door. He saw the 2 police officers. His smile disappeared. "Robert Williams?" the tall officer said. "Yes. Can I help you?" "Mr. Williams, we need you to come with us. You are under arrest for fraud and embezzlement." Robert's face went white. "What? There must be some mistake." "Please put your hands behind your back, sir." "No, wait. I did not do anything. I do not understand." The officer stepped forward. He pulled out handcuffs. "Sir, do not make this harder. Put your hands behind your back." Robert looked at Victoria. She was sitting on the couch crying. He looked at Grace. Grace's face showed shock and fear. "Robert, just do what they say," Victoria said through her tears. Robert's hands shook. He slowly put his hands behind his back. The officer put the cold metal handcuffs on his wrists. The click sound was very loud. At that moment, Marcus, Jason, David, and Kevin ran into the house from the backyard. They saw their daddy. They saw the handcuffs. They started screaming, "Daddy! Daddy!" Marcus ran toward him. Grace grabbed Marcus and held him back. She wrapped her arms around all 4 boys. They were crying and trying to reach their father. "It is okay, boys," Robert said. His voice was shaking. Tears filled his eyes. "Daddy will be home soon, I promise. Be good. I love you." "No, Daddy. Do not go!" Jason screamed. The officers walked Robert toward the door. Robert looked back at his sons. His heart was breaking. He could not understand what was happening. The officers put Robert in the back of the police car. The 4 boys pressed their faces against the window, crying. Grace held them tight. She was crying too. Victoria stood in the doorway. She held a tissue to her face. She watched the police car drive away. When the car was gone, she lowered the tissue. For 1 second, she smiled. Grace saw it. Grace looked at Victoria. Their eyes met. In that moment, Grace knew the truth. Victoria did this. Victoria destroyed Robert. Victoria hurt this family. Grace pulled the boys close. She whispered, "I will find the truth, no matter what it takes." Grace held the boys in the living room. They were crying hard. Their faces were wet with tears. Victoria walked past them and went upstairs without saying a word. "Where did they take Daddy?" Kevin asked. His voice was very small. Grace knelt down so she was eye level with the boys. She wiped tears from their faces with her hands. "Your daddy had to go with the police officers," Grace said softly. "But he did not do anything wrong. Miss Grace knows that. Your daddy is a good man." "When will he come home?" Jason asked. Grace's heart hurt. She did not know the answer. "I do not know, baby, but we have to be strong for him. We have to pray for him." Marcus looked toward the stairs where Victoria had gone. His small face was angry. "She did something bad. I know it." Grace looked at Marcus carefully. "What do you mean, Marcus?" Marcus opened his mouth to speak, but then he heard footsteps. Victoria was coming back down the stairs. Marcus closed his mouth and looked at the floor. Grace stood up. She took the boys to the kitchen. She made them grilled cheese sandwiches, but they did not eat much. They sat at the table looking sad and scared. That night, Grace put the boys to bed early. She read them 2 stories instead of 1. She sang them a soft song. She stayed in their room until they fell asleep. Then she went to her small room and called the number Robert had given her years ago. It was his lawyer's number. The phone rang 4 times. Then a man answered. "This is Thomas Green." "Mr. Green, my name is Grace Turner. I work for Robert Williams. He was arrested today." "Yes, I know," Thomas said. His voice was serious. "The police called me. I am going to see him tomorrow morning at the county jail." "Mr. Green, Robert did not do what they are saying. I know him. He would never steal money." Thomas was quiet for a moment. "I believe you, Grace. But the police say they have evidence. I need to see what we are dealing with. I will call you after I meet with Robert tomorrow. Please tell him his boys are okay. Please tell him we love him." "I will." Grace hung up the phone. She sat on her bed and prayed. At the Los Angeles County Jail in downtown Los Angeles, Robert sat in a cold cell. The cell had gray concrete walls. There was a small bed with a thin mattress. There was a metal toilet in the corner. Robert shared the cell with 3 other men. One man was sleeping. The other 2 were talking quietly. Robert sat on the bed with his head in his hands. He could not stop thinking about his sons. He could see their faces when the officers took him away. He could hear them screaming for him. His chest felt tight. He could not breathe right. A guard walked past the cell. Robert stood up. "Excuse me. Can I make a phone call?" The guard stopped. "You get 1 call. Come with me." The guard unlocked the cell. He walked Robert down a hallway to a room with a payphone on the wall. Robert picked up the phone. His hands were shaking. He dialed his home number. The phone rang, and rang, and rang. No one answered. Robert closed his eyes. He hung up the phone. "Time is up," the guard said. Robert was taken back to the cell. He lay down on the hard bed. He did not sleep all night. He stared at the ceiling. He tried to understand what happened. He did not steal any money. He did not do anything wrong. Someone set him up. But who? And why? The next morning, a guard came to the cell. "Williams, your lawyer is here." Robert was taken to a small room. The room had a metal table and 2 chairs. Thomas Green was already sitting in one of the chairs. Thomas was 55 years old with gray hair and glasses. He wore a dark blue suit. He had a briefcase on the table. "Robert!" Thomas stood up and shook Robert's hand. "Thomas, thank God." Robert sat down. "I did not do this. I swear to you, I did not steal any money." "I believe you," Thomas said. "But we have a problem." He opened his briefcase and pulled out a folder. He put it on the table. Robert looked at the folder. His stomach felt sick. Thomas opened the folder. Inside were papers, bank statements, contracts, emails. Thomas spread them out on the table. The police gave me copies of everything, Thomas said. Robert, this looks very bad. Robert picked up one of the bank statements. His hands shook. The statement showed his name. It showed his account number. It showed transfers of money, large amounts, $100,000, $200,000, $500,000. The dates went back 3 months. The total was $3 million. I did not do this, Robert said. His voice was loud. This is not real. Someone made this up. Thomas pointed to the signature at the bottom of a contract. That is your signature. Robert looked closely. It did look like his signature, but he did not remember signing this contract. He picked up another paper, another signature, and another. They all looked like his handwriting. I do not understand, Robert said. I did not sign these papers. I never saw these papers before. Thomas took off his glasses and rubbed his eyes. Robert, someone went to a lot of trouble to make this look real. The bank statements match. The signatures match. The emails show communication between you and offshore accounts. Offshore accounts? I do not have any offshore accounts. I know, but according to these documents, you do. Thomas put his glasses back on. Your court hearing is scheduled for October 2nd. That gives us 2 weeks to figure out what happened and who did this to you. Robert put his head in his hands. My boys, are my boys okay? I spoke to Grace this morning. She said they are scared, but she is taking care of them. I need to get out of here, Thomas. I need to get back to my sons. I am working on bail, but with charges this serious, it will be difficult. Thomas started putting the papers back in the folder. Robert, I need you to think. Who has access to your office? Who knows your passwords? Who could get into your computer? Robert thought hard. Grace has been with me for 10 years. She would never do this. My business partner Michael Chen has access to some files, but not my personal accounts, and… Robert stopped. His face changed. What? Thomas asked. Victoria, my wife. She has been in my office. She used my computer a few times. She said she was checking her email. Thomas wrote something down in a notebook. How long have you been married? 6 months. And how long did you know her before that? We dated for 4 months before I proposed. Thomas looked at Robert. So you have known her for less than a year total? Robert nodded slowly. Yes. Tell me about Victoria. How did you meet her? At a charity gala downtown. She was very kind. She understood my pain about losing Angela. She made me feel less alone. Thomas wrote more notes. Did she ever ask about your business? About your money? Robert thought back. She asked some questions, but I thought she was just interested in my life. Thomas closed his notebook. He looked at Robert seriously. Robert, I am going to investigate Victoria. I am going to look at her background. I am going to check her financial records. If she did this, we will find proof. Do you really think Victoria could do this? Robert's voice was quiet. I think anyone who wants $3 million could do this. Robert felt sick. He thought about Victoria, her smile, her green eyes, the way she kissed him goodbye every morning. Was it all fake? Did she ever love him? Or did she only love his money? I need you to stay strong, Thomas said. Do not talk to anyone about your case. Do not make any phone calls except to me. And do not give up. We will fight this. Thomas left. Robert was taken back to his cell. He sat on the bed. He felt hollow inside. At the mansion on Sunset Boulevard, Grace made breakfast for the boys. Pancakes again. But the boys barely touched them. I miss Daddy, David said. Me too, Jason said. Kevin started crying. I want Daddy to come home. Grace hugged Kevin. I know, baby. Miss Grace is doing everything she can. Marcus did not say anything. He stared at his plate. After breakfast, Victoria came into the kitchen. She looked at the boys with cold eyes. You all need to be quiet today, Victoria said. I have a headache and I do not want to hear any noise. We want our daddy, David said. Victoria's face became angry. Your daddy is not coming home. He is a bad man. He stole money. He is a criminal." Marcus stood up. His small hands were in fists. "That is a lie. Our daddy is good. You are the bad one." Victoria walked over to Marcus. She leaned down close to his face. "Do not talk to me that way. I am in charge now." Grace stepped between them. "That is enough. Boys, go to your room." The 4 boys ran upstairs. Grace turned to Victoria. "They are children. They are scared. Do not speak to them that way." Victoria's green eyes were cold. "Do not tell me what to do. You are just the maid." Grace did not answer. She turned and walked upstairs to check on the boys. That night, the 4 boys sat together in their bedroom. Marcus, Jason, David, and Kevin sat in a circle on the floor. "We need to talk," Marcus whispered. "About what?" Jason asked. "About Miss Victoria," Marcus said. "I saw something. 2 weeks ago, I woke up in the middle of the night. I needed water. I walked downstairs. I saw a light on in Daddy's office. I looked through the door. Miss Victoria was there. She had papers in her hands. She was looking at them. Then she put them in a folder." Jason's eyes got big. "I saw her too. She was on Daddy's computer. She did not see me." David nodded. "She is mean to us. She does not love Daddy. She does not love us." Kevin started crying quietly. Marcus put his arm around him. "We have to tell someone," Marcus said. "We have to tell the truth." "Who will believe us?" Jason asked. "We are just kids." "We have to try," Marcus said. "When Daddy comes home, we will tell him everything. We will tell him what we saw." The 4 boys put their hands together in the middle of the circle. "We promise to tell the truth," Marcus said. "We promise," the other 3 said. Later that night, Marcus could not sleep. He got out of bed. He walked to the window. He looked up at the stars. He thought about his daddy. He thought about his mommy in heaven. Marcus turned around. His 3 brothers were awake now. They were looking at him. Marcus walked back to his bed. He looked at Jason, David, and Kevin. "We will save Daddy," Marcus whispered. The next morning, the boys woke up early. None of them had slept well. They went downstairs together. Grace was already in the kitchen making oatmeal. "Good morning, babies," Grace said. She tried to smile, but her eyes were sad. "Good morning, Miss Grace," the boys said quietly. They sat at the table. Grace gave them each a bowl of oatmeal with brown sugar and bananas. They ate slowly. Victoria was still sleeping upstairs. Grace was glad. When Victoria was awake, the house felt dark and heavy. After breakfast, Grace took the boys to the backyard. They sat on the grass. The sun was warm. Birds were singing in the trees. But the boys did not play. They just sat there looking sad. Grace's phone rang. She answered it. "Hello? Grace, it is Thomas Green." "Mr. Green, how is Robert?" "He is struggling, but he is staying strong. I need to ask you something. Has Victoria been acting strange? Has she done anything unusual?" Grace looked at the boys. They were not listening. They were picking grass. "Yes," Grace said quietly. "She has been in Robert's office a lot. I heard her on the phone yesterday. She sounded angry, and she is very mean to the children." "Mean how?" "She yells at them. She tells them their father is a bad man. Yesterday she told them he is not coming home." Thomas was quiet for a moment. "Grace, I need you to watch her carefully. If you see anything or hear anything, call me immediately. I think Victoria is involved in this." "I think so too, Mr. Green. Keep the boys safe, and keep yourself safe too." Grace hung up the phone. Her hands were shaking. Inside the mansion, Victoria woke up. She stretched in the big bed. She looked around the master bedroom. Everything was expensive. The furniture, the curtains, the chandelier. She smiled. Soon this would all be hers. Victoria got out of bed. She put on a white robe and walked to the window. She looked down at the backyard. She saw Grace sitting with the boys. Victoria's smile disappeared. Those boys were a problem. She needed to deal with them. Victoria went downstairs to Robert's office. She closed the door and locked it. She sat at his desk. She opened her laptop. She typed into the search bar, "Can children testify in court?" The search results appeared. Victoria read them carefully. Children could testify, even young children. If they were old enough to understand truth from lies, they could be witnesses. Victoria's heart started beating fast. What if the boys saw her that night? What if they remembered? What if they told someone? She stood up and started pacing. She bit her thumbnail. She needed a plan. She needed to make sure the boys stayed quiet. Victoria unlocked the office door and walked to the living room. She looked out the window at the boys. They were still in the backyard with Grace. Victoria watched Marcus. He was the oldest. He was the smart one. He was the dangerous one. Victoria pulled out her phone. She dialed a number. A man answered. "Hello? It is me," Victoria said. Her voice was low. "We have a problem." "What problem?" "The kids. I think they might have seen me that night. I think they know something." "So what? They are just kids. Nobody will believe them. You do not understand. Children can testify in court. I looked it up. If they tell the judge they saw me, everything falls apart." The man was quiet. "What are you going to do?" "I do not know yet, but I need to keep them quiet. They cannot be at that court hearing." "When is the hearing?" "October 2nd, 1 week from today. Figure it out, and do not call me again. It is too risky." The man hung up. Victoria put her phone in her pocket. She took a deep breath. She needed to think. Grace was still outside with the boys. She told them to play on the swings, but they did not want to. They just sat on the grass. Grace decided to go inside and fold laundry. Maybe it would help her think. Grace walked into the house. She went upstairs to the laundry room. She started folding towels. Then she heard a voice. It was coming from the bedroom. Victoria's voice. Grace put down the towel. She walked quietly down the hallway. She stood outside the bedroom door. It was open just a little bit. Victoria was on the phone. "I need to make sure those kids stay quiet. They could ruin everything." Grace's breath stopped. She pressed herself against the wall and listened. "I will handle it," Victoria said. "Do not worry, they will not be a problem." Grace heard footsteps. Victoria was walking toward the door. Grace quickly walked away. She went back to the laundry room. Her heart was pounding. She folded towels with shaking hands. What did Victoria mean? What was she going to do to the boys? Grace finished the laundry. She went back downstairs. Victoria was in the kitchen drinking coffee. She looked at Grace with cold eyes. "Where are the boys?" Victoria asked. "They are in the backyard." "Keep them out there. I do not want them in the house making noise." Grace did not answer. She walked outside. She looked at the 4 boys sitting on the grass. She made a decision. She needed to protect them. "Boys," Grace called. "Come here, please." Marcus, Jason, David, and Kevin walked over to her. Grace sat down on the porch steps. The boys sat next to her. "I need to talk to you about something important," Grace said. She looked at each boy carefully. "I need you to listen to me very carefully. If Miss Victoria asks you to go somewhere with her, you say no. You come find me first. Do you understand?" "Why, Miss Grace?" Marcus asked. Grace did not want to scare them, but she needed them to understand. "Because I love you, and I need to keep you safe." "Is Miss Victoria going to hurt us?" Jason asked. His eyes were big and scared. "I will not let anyone hurt you," Grace said. "But you need to do what I say. Stay close to me. Do not go anywhere with Miss Victoria unless I am there too. Promise me." "We promise," Marcus said. Jason, David, and Kevin nodded. Grace hugged all 4 boys. She held them tight. "Everything will be okay. Miss Grace will protect you." At the county jail, Robert was lying on his bed. He had not eaten breakfast. He had not eaten dinner the night before. His cellmates were playing cards in the corner. Robert did not move. He just stared at the ceiling. A guard came to the cell. "Williams, you have a visitor." Robert sat up. He followed the guard to the visiting room. Thomas was waiting at a table. "Robert, we need to talk," Thomas said. Robert sat down. "Did you find something?" "I am investigating Victoria's background. So far, I found some interesting things. Her full name is Victoria Mendez. She changed her last name to Hayes 5 years ago. Before she met you, she had relationships with 3 other wealthy men. None of them married her." Robert felt sick. "So she was targeting me?" "It looks that way. I have investigators checking her computer and phone records, but they need a warrant. That takes time. The hearing is in 1 week, October 2nd. 1 week, Robert repeated. He put his head in his hands. "Thomas, I just realized something." "What?" "Victoria has been in my office many times. She used my computer. She knew my passwords. She saw me type them." Robert looked up at Thomas. His face was pale. "She did this. Victoria did this to me." Thomas nodded slowly. "I think you are right. But we need proof. We need something concrete to show the judge." "My sons," Robert said suddenly. "Marcus told me he saw Victoria in my office late one night. He saw her with papers." Thomas leaned forward. "When did he tell you this?" "He did not tell me. But the morning I was arrested, he said Victoria did something bad. I did not understand what he meant, but now I do. Thomas, my sons saw her. They are witnesses." Thomas wrote in his notebook. "That is good. That is very good. But Robert, they are very young, only 5 years old. A judge might not accept their testimony. We need more. We need physical evidence. What if we do not find any?" Thomas looked at Robert seriously. "Then I will do everything I can with what we have, but I will not lie to you, Robert. Without physical proof, this will be very difficult." Robert felt hopeless. "I cannot stay here for 10 years, Thomas. I cannot be away from my sons. You will not be. I promise you, we will fight this with everything we have." Thomas left. Robert was taken back to his cell. He sat on the bed. He closed his eyes. He thought about Victoria, her smile, her lies, her cold green eyes. How could he have been so stupid? How could he not have seen who she really was? Robert thought about Angela, his first wife, his true love. She would have known. Angela always knew when something was wrong. She had good instincts. She could read people. But Angela was gone, and Robert had been so lonely, so desperate for love. Victoria used that against him. Robert made a promise to himself. If he got out of this, he would never let anyone hurt his family again. He would never be blind again. He would protect his sons, no matter what. At the mansion, night came. Grace made spaghetti for dinner. The boys ate a little bit. Victoria did not come down to eat. She stayed in the bedroom. After dinner, Grace gave the boys their baths. She helped them put on pajamas. She read them 3 stories. She sang them a song. Then she tucked them into their beds. "Miss Grace?" Kevin said. "Yes, baby? Will Daddy come home soon?" Grace's eyes filled with tears. "I hope so, baby. I am praying every day." Grace turned off the light. She started to leave the room. "Miss Grace?" Marcus called. Grace turned around. "Yes, Marcus. We are going to save Daddy. We saw what Miss Victoria did. We will tell everyone the truth." Grace walked back to Marcus's bed. She knelt down next to him. She put her hand on his small face. "You are a very brave boy, Marcus. All of you are brave. But you need to be careful. Miss Victoria is dangerous." "We will be careful," Marcus whispered. "But we will not let her win." Grace kissed his forehead. She kissed Jason, David, and Kevin too. Then she left the room. In the hallway, Victoria was standing in the shadows. She had heard everything. Victoria's face was cold and hard. She turned and walked to her bedroom. She sat on the bed. She picked up her phone. She looked at the calendar. October 2nd was in 7 days. 7 days to make sure those boys stayed quiet. Victoria smiled in the dark. Victoria woke up early the next morning. It was October 1st. The court hearing was tomorrow at 9 o'clock in the morning. She had less than 24 hours to finish her plan. Victoria got dressed in black pants and a gray sweater. She went downstairs to the kitchen. Grace was already there making breakfast. The boys were still sleeping. "Good morning," Victoria said. Her voice was sweet, too sweet. Grace looked at her. "Good morning. I will be out most of the day," Victoria said. "I need to prepare for the hearing tomorrow. I need to look my best when I tell the judge what Robert did." Grace did not answer. She cracked eggs into a pan. Victoria poured coffee into a white mug. She watched Grace carefully. "The boys seem very attached to you. I love them very much," Grace said. "Of course you do," Victoria smiled. "I am sure they will be fine when their father goes to prison." Grace turned around. Her eyes were hard. "Robert is innocent." Victoria's smile grew bigger. "We will see what the judge says tomorrow." Victoria took her coffee and left the kitchen. Grace heard the front door open and close. Victoria's car started. Grace walked to the window and watched Victoria drive away. Grace went upstairs to wake the boys. They got dressed slowly. They came downstairs and ate scrambled eggs and toast. They were very quiet. "Can we call Daddy?" David asked. Grace's heart hurt. "Baby, Daddy cannot take phone calls right now, but he knows we love him." "I miss him so much," Jason said. Marcus did not say anything. He just stared at his plate. Grace spent the day with the boys. They played with toy cars in the living room. They colored pictures. They watched a cartoon movie. But nothing made them happy. They wanted their father. Victoria did not come home until 8 o'clock that night. She walked in carrying shopping bags. Grace was in the kitchen cleaning up after dinner. "Did the boys eat?" Victoria asked. "Yes, they are upstairs getting ready for bed." Victoria nodded. She took her bags upstairs. Grace heard her footsteps in the bedroom above the kitchen. Grace finished washing dishes. She dried her hands on a towel. She had a very bad feeling in her stomach. Something was wrong. Something was going to happen. Grace went upstairs to the boys' bedroom. She read them a story. She sang them a song. She prayed with them. Then she kissed each boy on the forehead. "Sleep well, babies," Grace said. "Good night, Miss Grace," the boys said together. Grace left their room. She went downstairs to her own small room at the back of the house. She changed into her nightgown, but she did not get into bed. She sat in a chair by the window. She could not sleep. She was too worried. At midnight, Grace was still sitting in the chair. The house was completely quiet. Then she heard something. Footsteps. Very quiet footsteps walking down the hallway upstairs. Grace stood up. She opened her door quietly. She looked toward the stairs. She saw a shadow. Victoria. Victoria was walking toward the boys' bedroom. Grace's heart started racing. She wanted to run upstairs, but something told her to wait, to watch. Victoria opened the boys' bedroom door and went inside. Grace could not see what was happening. She waited. 5 minutes passed. Then Victoria came out of the bedroom. She was alone. She went back to the master bedroom and closed the door. Grace waited another 10 minutes. Then she went upstairs. She opened the boys' bedroom door very slowly. She looked inside. All 4 boys were sleeping in their beds. They looked peaceful. Grace let out a breath. Maybe she was worrying too much. Grace went back downstairs. She got into her bed. But she still could not sleep. At 5 o'clock in the morning, Victoria's alarm went off. She opened her eyes. Today was October 2nd, the day of the hearing, the day she would win. Victoria got out of bed. She put on dark clothes, black pants, a black shirt, black shoes. She walked quietly down the hallway to the boys' bedroom. She opened the door. The room was dark. She turned on the light. Marcus opened his eyes first, then Jason, then David, then Kevin. They all sat up and looked at Victoria. They looked confused and scared. "Why are you waking us up?" Marcus asked. "It is still dark outside." Victoria forced a smile onto her face. "We are going to play a special game. A surprise game. Come with me." "What kind of game?" Jason asked. "A fun game, but we need to go downstairs. Come on, quickly." Kevin started to cry. "I want Miss Grace." Victoria's voice became hard. "Miss Grace is sleeping. Do not wake her up. Come with me right now." The boys got out of their beds. They were wearing their pajamas. They followed Victoria out of the bedroom and down the stairs. They did not understand what was happening. Victoria led them through the kitchen. She opened a door at the back of the kitchen. It was the basement door. The boys stopped walking. "I do not want to go down there," David said. "The basement is scary." "It is not scary," Victoria said. Her voice was getting angry. "Go down the stairs. Now." "No," Marcus said. He took a step back. "Miss Grace told us not to go anywhere with you." Victoria's face became red. She grabbed Marcus's arm, hard. "I said, go down the stairs." Marcus pulled away. "No!" Victoria pushed him. Marcus stumbled toward the basement door. Jason, David, and Kevin started crying. Victoria pushed all 4 boys toward the stairs. "Go down there and wait. The game will start soon." "Please, Miss Victoria," Jason cried. "We do not want to play. We are scared. I do not care what you want." Victoria's voice was cold and mean. "Get down there, now." The 4 boys walked slowly down the basement stairs. It was very dark. They could not see anything. The basement smelled like dust and old things. It was cold. "Miss Victoria, can you turn on the light?" Marcus called. But Victoria did not answer. She closed the basement door. The boys heard a sound, a clicking sound, then a louder sound. Metal on metal. Marcus ran back up the stairs. He pushed on the door. It did not open. He pushed harder. Nothing. "She locked us in!" Marcus yelled. He banged on the door with his fists. "Let us out! Let us out!" Jason, David, and Kevin ran up the stairs. They all started banging on the door. They screamed and cried. "Help us, please, somebody help us! Miss Grace, help us!" But no one came. Victoria stood on the other side of the door. She listened to them scream. She did not feel anything. She turned and walked away. The boys kept screaming. They banged on the door until their hands hurt. The basement was so dark they could not see each other. Kevin was crying very hard. Jason was shaking. David could not stop screaming. Marcus tried to be brave, but he was terrified. "Stop crying," Marcus said. His voice was shaking. "We need to stay together. Hold hands." The 4 boys held hands in the dark. They sat down on the cold basement steps. They kept calling for help. Upstairs, Victoria took a shower. She washed her hair. She put on a black dress. She did her makeup carefully. She looked in the mirror. She practiced her sad face. The face of a woman whose husband was a criminal. Victoria put on black high heels. She grabbed her purse. She walked out of the mansion and got into her car. She started driving toward downtown Los Angeles, toward the courthouse. She left the 4 boys locked in the basement in the dark. Grace woke up at 6:30 in the morning. The sun was just starting to come up. Grace got out of bed. She got dressed. She had the day off, but something told her she needed to go to the mansion. She needed to check on the boys. Grace drove to the mansion in her old blue Honda. She arrived at 8 o'clock in the morning. She used her key to open the front door. "Boys!" Grace called. "Marcus! Jason! David! Kevin!" No one answered. The house was silent. Grace's heart started pounding. She ran upstairs to the boys' bedroom. The door was open. The beds were empty. The sheets were messy. The boys were gone. "Boys! Where are you?" Grace ran to the bathroom. Empty. She ran to the playroom. Empty. She ran downstairs and checked the living room, the kitchen, the backyard. The boys were nowhere. Grace felt panic rising in her chest. Where were they? Where did Victoria take them? Then Grace heard something, a sound, very faint, coming from below the house, crying. Grace froze. She listened carefully. Yes, it was crying and screaming, coming from the basement. Grace ran to the basement door. She grabbed the handle and pulled. The door did not open. She looked down. There was a big metal padlock on the door. "Boys, are you down there?" Grace yelled. Miss Grace, help us!" It was Marcus's voice. "We cannot breathe. It is so dark. Please help us. I am here, babies! I am here!" Grace pulled on the door handle as hard as she could. The lock did not break. "Hold on! I will get you out!" Grace ran to the garage. She looked around frantically. She saw a hammer hanging on the wall. She grabbed it and ran back to the basement door. Grace hit the padlock with the hammer, once, twice, 3 times. Her arms hurt. She kept hitting it. Finally, the lock broke. Grace threw the hammer down and pulled the door open. 4 small bodies ran up the stairs and crashed into her. Marcus, Jason, David, and Kevin wrapped their arms around Grace. They were shaking and crying. Their faces were red and wet with tears. "I got you. I got you." Grace held all 4 boys tight. She was crying too. "You are safe now. Miss Grace has got you." "She locked us in there," Marcus sobbed. "Miss Victoria locked us in the dark. We could not breathe. We were so scared." Grace's face became hard. She knew what she had to do. "Come with me, right now. We are going to save your daddy." Grace ran to the kitchen and grabbed her car keys from the counter. She held Marcus and Jason by their hands. David and Kevin ran behind them. The boys were still wearing their pajamas. They had no shoes on their feet. But there was no time. Grace opened the front door and ran to her old blue Honda in the driveway. She opened the back door. "Get in! Quickly!" All 4 boys climbed into the back seat. Grace closed the door and ran to the driver's seat. She started the car. Her hands were shaking. "Miss Grace, where are we going?" Jason asked. Grace looked at them in the rearview mirror. Their faces were red from crying. Their eyes were scared. "We are going to the courthouse," Grace said. "Your daddy is there right now. There is a judge. The judge will decide if your daddy did something bad. But we know he did not. We know Miss Victoria did it. We need to tell the judge the truth. Can you do that?" Marcus nodded. "Yes, we will tell the truth. We saw her. We saw everything." "Good boy," Grace said. She put the car in reverse and backed out of the driveway fast. She drove down Sunset Boulevard. She turned onto the main road that led to the freeway. Grace looked at the clock on the dashboard. It was 8:15 in the morning. The hearing started at 9 o'clock. She had 45 minutes. Grace drove onto the 405 freeway toward downtown Los Angeles. Then she saw it. Cars. Hundreds of cars. The traffic was terrible. Cars were not moving. They were just sitting there. "No, no, no," Grace said. She hit the steering wheel with her hand. "What is wrong, Miss Grace?" David asked. "Traffic. There is too much traffic." Grace looked at the clock again. 8:20. She needed to get to the courthouse in 40 minutes. Grace made a decision. She turned the wheel and drove onto the shoulder of the freeway. Cars honked at her. People yelled. Grace did not care. She kept driving. "Hold on, babies," Grace said. "Miss Grace is going to drive fast. Do not be scared." "We are not scared," Marcus said. "We trust you." Grace pressed the gas pedal. The car went faster. She drove on the shoulder, passing all the stopped cars. More cars honked. Grace prayed out loud. "Lord, please help us get there in time. Please let us save Robert. Please protect these babies. Please, Lord, please." In the back seat, the boys held hands. Kevin was crying quietly. Jason put his arm around Kevin. "It will be okay," Jason whispered. "We will see Daddy soon." At the Los Angeles County Courthouse in downtown Los Angeles, 2 guards brought Robert into courtroom 7. Robert was wearing an orange jail jumpsuit. His hands were in handcuffs in front of him. His face was thin. He had dark circles under his eyes. He had not slept in 2 weeks. Robert walked into the courtroom. He saw Thomas Green sitting at the defense table. Thomas stood up when Robert came in. The guards unlocked Robert's handcuffs. Robert sat down next to Thomas. "How are you holding up?" Thomas asked quietly. "I just want this to be over," Robert said. His voice was tired. Thomas opened his briefcase. He pulled out papers. "Robert, I tried everything. The investigators need more time to get into Victoria's computer. We do not have enough physical evidence yet. I am going to argue that someone framed you, but without proof." "I know," Robert said. He looked down at his hands. "I know." People started filling the courtroom. Robert turned around. He saw Victoria sitting in the front row. She was wearing a black dress and dark sunglasses. She was holding a white tissue in her hand. Robert stared at her. Victoria did not look at him. Then the bailiff stood up. "All rise. The Honorable Judge Margaret Sullivan presiding." Everyone in the courtroom stood up. A woman walked in wearing a black robe. She had short gray hair and a serious face. She was 60 years old. She walked to her bench and sat down. "You may be seated," Judge Sullivan said. Everyone sat down. The judge looked at the papers on her desk. She looked at Robert. Then she looked at Thomas. "We are here today for the case of the State of California versus Robert Williams. Mr. Williams is accused of fraud and embezzlement. Is the defense ready?" Thomas stood up. "Yes, Your Honor." "Is the prosecution ready?" A woman in a blue suit stood up. Her name was Linda Marshall. She was the prosecutor. "Yes, Your Honor." Judge Sullivan nodded. "The prosecution may begin." Linda Marshall walked to the center of the courtroom. She looked at the judge. Then she looked at Robert. "Your Honor, the evidence in this case is very clear. Robert Williams stole $3 million from his own company. He transferred money to secret offshore accounts. He created false documents to hide what he was doing. He betrayed his business partners. He broke the law." Linda walked to her table. She picked up a folder. "I have bank statements showing the transfers. I have contracts with Mr. Williams's signature. I have emails between Mr. Williams and the offshore accounts. The evidence is overwhelming." Linda showed the judge the papers. Judge Sullivan looked at them carefully. Her face was serious. Thomas stood up. "Your Honor, my client is innocent. We believe he was framed. Someone created these documents to make it look like Mr. Williams committed these crimes. We just need more time to prove it." Judge Sullivan looked at Thomas. "Mr. Green, do you have any evidence that your client was framed?" Thomas hesitated. "Not yet, Your Honor. But we are investigating." "Not yet is not good enough, Mr. Green. This is a court of law. I need evidence. I need facts. Do you have any witnesses?" Thomas looked at Robert. Robert shook his head slowly. Thomas turned back to the judge. "No, Your Honor." Judge Sullivan frowned. She looked at the papers again. Linda Marshall spoke. "Your Honor, I would like to call Victoria Williams to the witness stand." Victoria stood up. She walked slowly to the front of the courtroom. She sat down in the witness chair. A bailiff came over with a Bible. "Please raise your right hand," the bailiff said. "Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?" "I do," Victoria said. Her voice was soft and sad. Linda Marshall walked toward Victoria. "Mrs. Williams, can you please tell the court about your relationship with the defendant?" Victoria took a tissue and wiped her eyes. "Robert is my husband. We got married 6 months ago. I thought he was a good man. I thought he loved me." "When did you discover the documents?" 2 weeks ago. I was looking for a phone charger in his office. I opened a drawer. I saw papers. At first, I did not understand what they were. But then I looked closer. I saw bank accounts I had never heard of. I saw large amounts of money. I was so confused. "What did you do?" Victoria's voice shook. "I confronted him. He told me to mind my own business. He said I did not understand. He became very angry. I was scared. I did not know what to do. So I called the police. I felt I had no choice." Robert stood up. "That is a lie. Your Honor, she is lying." Judge Sullivan hit her gavel. "Mr. Williams, sit down. You will have your chance to speak." Thomas pulled Robert back into his chair. Robert's face was red. He was breathing hard. Linda Marshall continued, "Mrs. Williams, do you believe your husband is guilty?" Victoria looked at Robert. Then she looked at the judge. "Yes, I believe he stole that money. I saw the evidence. I wish it was not true, but it is." Victoria started crying. She covered her face with her hands. Some people in the courtroom looked at her with sympathy. Linda Marshall nodded. "Thank you, Mrs. Williams. No further questions." Victoria walked back to her seat. She sat down and put her sunglasses back on. Under the dark glasses, she smiled. Judge Sullivan looked at Robert. "Mr. Williams, do you have anything to say in your defense?" Robert stood up. His legs felt weak. His voice shook when he spoke. "Your Honor, I did not do this. I swear on my sons' lives. Someone set me up. I would never steal money. I would never risk losing my children. They are everything to me. Please, you have to believe me. I am innocent." Judge Sullivan looked at him for a long time. Her face did not change. "Mr. Williams, I understand you are upset, but I cannot make decisions based on emotions. I need evidence. Do you have any witnesses? Anyone who can support your claim?" The courtroom was completely silent. Robert looked at Thomas. Thomas shook his head. "Thomas." Robert looked around the courtroom. No one was there. Grace was not there. His sons were not there. He had no one. Robert's voice was barely a whisper. "No, Your Honor. I have no witnesses." Victoria smiled under her tissue. She thought she won. She thought it was over. Judge Sullivan picked up her gavel. She was about to speak. She was about to make her decision. Then the doors at the back of the courtroom slammed open. The sound was so loud that everyone jumped. Everyone turned around. Grace stood in the doorway. She was breathing hard. Her face was covered in sweat. Her clothes were wrinkled. She held Marcus's hand in her right hand. She held Jason's hand in her left hand. David and Kevin ran behind her. All 4 boys were wearing pajamas. Their feet were bare. Their faces were dirty and red from crying. Robert saw them. He gasped. He jumped to his feet. "My boys!" His voice cracked. Tears filled his eyes. Victoria turned around. When she saw the boys, her face went completely white. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. She tried to stand up, but her legs were shaking. She fell back into her seat. The 4 boys saw their father. They screamed, "Daddy! Daddy!" They ran down the center aisle. They pushed through the gate. They jumped into Robert's arms. Robert fell to his knees. He wrapped his arms around all 4 boys. He sobbed. His whole body shook. "I missed you so much. I love you so much." The boys cried into his chest. They held him tight. Judge Sullivan hit her gavel hard. "Order! Order in this court! What is the meaning of this?" Grace walked to the center of the courtroom. She was still breathing hard. She looked directly at Judge Sullivan. "Your Honor, my name is Grace Turner. I work for Mr. Williams. I need to tell you something very important." Judge Sullivan leaned forward on her bench. She looked at Grace carefully. Then she looked at the 4 boys standing next to Robert. Their small feet were dirty. They were shaking. "Ms. Turner, what is it you need to tell me?" the judge asked. Grace took a deep breath. Her voice was strong and clear. "Your Honor, this morning I went to the mansion on Sunset Boulevard. The boys were missing. I looked everywhere. I could not find them. Then I heard crying. It was coming from below the house, from the basement." The courtroom became very quiet. Everyone was listening. Grace continued. "I ran to the basement door. It was locked. There was a big metal padlock on it. I heard the boys screaming. They said they could not breathe. They said it was dark. They were terrified." Judge Sullivan's face became serious. "Someone locked these children in a basement?" "Yes, Your Honor. I had to break the lock with a hammer to get them out. When I opened the door, they ran into my arms. They were crying and shaking." People in the courtroom started whispering. Judge Sullivan hit her gavel. "Quiet!" The judge looked at Victoria. Victoria's face was white. She was not moving. "Mrs. Williams, do you know anything about this?" Judge Sullivan asked. Victoria stood up quickly. Her voice was high and shaky. "No, I do not know what she is talking about. I left the house early this morning to come here. The boys were asleep in their beds. I did not touch them." Grace shook her head. "That is not true, Your Honor. Those boys were locked in that basement. They were left there in the dark, and they know who did it." Judge Sullivan looked at the 4 boys. They were standing close to their father. Robert had his arms around them. "Boys," the judge said. Her voice was softer now. "Can you tell me what happened this morning?" Marcus stepped forward. Even though he was only 5 years old and wearing pajamas, he stood up straight. He looked right at Victoria. He pointed his small finger at her. "She did it," Marcus said. His voice was loud and clear. "Miss Victoria woke us up when it was still dark. She said we were going to play a game. She took us to the basement. We did not want to go. We were scared, but she pushed us. She made us go down the stairs. Then she closed the door and locked it." The courtroom erupted. People gasped. They talked loudly. Judge Sullivan hit her gavel 3 times. "Order! Order!" Jason stepped forward next to his brother. "We screamed for help. We banged on the door, but she did not let us out. It was so dark. We could not see anything. We were so scared." David was crying, but he spoke too. "She locked us in there because we know the truth. We know what she did to Daddy." Kevin's voice was very quiet, but everyone heard him. "She is mean. She yells at us. She said Daddy is bad, but Daddy is not bad. She is the bad one." Victoria stood up. She was shaking. "They are lying, Your Honor. They are just children. You cannot believe them. They do not know what they are saying." Judge Sullivan's face was red with anger. She stared at Victoria. "Sit down, Mrs. Williams." Victoria sat down. She was breathing fast. Her hands were shaking. The judge looked at Marcus again. "Marcus, you said Miss Victoria locked you in the basement because you know the truth. What truth?" Marcus looked up at the judge. "We saw her 2 weeks ago, late at night. I woke up to get water. I walked downstairs. I saw a light in Daddy's office. I looked through the door. Miss Victoria was there. She had Daddy's papers in her hands. She was looking at them. Then she took them." Judge Sullivan leaned forward. "You saw her take your father's papers?" "Yes, Your Honor, and she was on Daddy's computer. I saw her typing. She did not see me. I was hiding." Jason spoke up. "I saw her too. A different night. She was in the office very late. She had a lot of papers on the desk. She was changing them." Linda Marshall, the prosecutor, stood up. "Your Honor, these are children. They are very young. Their testimony may not be reliable." Judge Sullivan looked at Linda. Her voice was cold. "Ms. Marshall, these children just described being locked in a basement in the dark. I take that very seriously, and their testimony is consistent. They are telling the same story." The judge looked at Grace. "Ms. Turner, how long have you worked for Mr. Williams?" 10 years, Your Honor. I started working for him when his first wife, Angela, was still alive. I have taken care of these boys since they were born. I know them. They do not lie." Judge Sullivan nodded. She looked at Victoria again. "Mrs. Williams, did you lock these children in the basement?" Victoria stood up. Her voice was shaking. "No, this is crazy. Why would I do that?" Marcus spoke again. "Because we saw you steal Daddy's papers. Because we know you are lying. You did not want us to come here today. You did not want us to tell the judge the truth." Victoria's face turned red. "You do not know what you are talking about. You are just a child." "But I am telling the truth," Marcus said. "My mommy taught me to always tell the truth. She said lying is bad. You are the one lying." Judge Sullivan picked up her pen. She wrote something down. Then she looked at Linda Marshall. "Ms. Marshall, I want investigators to go to the mansion immediately. I want them to examine the basement. I want photographs. I want that broken padlock collected as evidence. And I want investigators to examine Mrs. Williams's computer and phone records. I want a full forensic analysis." Linda Marshall nodded. "Yes, Your Honor." She took out her phone and made a call. Victoria tried to stand up. "Your Honor, this is not fair. You are believing children over me. I am the victim here. My husband is the criminal, not me." Judge Sullivan's voice was like ice. "Mrs. Williams, sit down and be quiet, or I will have you removed from this courtroom." Victoria sat down. Her hands were shaking so hard she dropped her tissue. Thomas Green stood up. "Your Honor, I would like to request that my client be released immediately. It is clear that he was framed. The The children witnessed Mrs. Williams stealing documents from his office. She had access to his computer. She had opportunity and motive. "I am not releasing anyone yet," Judge Sullivan said, "but I am calling a recess. This hearing will continue in 2 hours. Investigators need time to collect evidence and examine Mrs. Williams's electronic devices." The judge hit her gavel. "This court is in recess for 2 hours." Everyone stood up. Judge Sullivan walked out of the courtroom through a door behind her bench. 2 police officers walked toward Victoria. She saw them coming. Her face went white. She tried to move toward the exit, but people were blocking her way. "Mrs. Williams, please come with us," one officer said. "No, I need to leave. I have things to do." "Ma'am, the judge ordered us to detain you until the investigators complete their work." Victoria looked around frantically. She saw Robert holding his sons. She saw Grace standing with them. Everyone was staring at her. "This is not over," Victoria said. Her voice was angry. "You will all regret this." The officers led Victoria out of the courtroom through a side door. Robert knelt down in front of his 4 sons. He touched their faces. He looked at each one of them. "You were so brave," Robert said. Tears ran down his face. "You saved Daddy. You told the truth even though you were scared. I am so proud of you." Marcus hugged his father. "We promised we would save you. We kept our promise." Robert pulled all 4 boys into his arms. He held them tight. Grace stood next to them. She was crying too. Thomas came over. "Robert, this is very good. The judge is taking this seriously. If the investigators find evidence on Victoria's computer, you will be cleared." "What if they do not find anything?" Robert asked. "They will. Victoria made mistakes. She locked 4 children in a basement. She was arrogant. She thought no one would believe them. But the judge believes them. Everyone believes them." A bailiff came over. "Mr. Williams, you need to go back to the holding cell until the hearing resumes." Robert looked at the bailiff. "Can my sons stay with me? Please. I just got them back." The bailiff looked uncomfortable. "Sir, that is not allowed." Judge Sullivan's voice came from behind them. She had come back into the courtroom. "Let them stay together. Take them to the private conference room. Let Mr. Williams have time with his children." "Yes, Your Honor," the bailiff said. Robert looked at Judge Sullivan. "Thank you, Your Honor." "Thank you." The judge nodded. Then she looked at the 4 boys. "You boys did something very brave today. You told the truth. That is the most important thing you can do." "Thank you, ma'am," Marcus said. Judge Sullivan smiled just a little. Then she turned and walked away. The bailiff led Robert, the 4 boys, Grace and Thomas, to a small conference room down the hall. There was a table and some chairs. The bailiff closed the door and stood outside. Robert sat down in a chair. The boys climbed onto his lap. All 4 of them. They were too big to fit, but they tried anyway. Robert held them. He smelled their hair. He kissed their heads over and over. Grace sat down across from them. She was still shaking. "Grace," Robert said, "you saved my life. You saved my children. I can never repay you." Grace wiped her eyes. "Those boys are my family. I would do anything for them. Anything." Thomas sat down too. He looked at his watch. "We have 2 hours. The investigators are fast. They will find what they need." "What happens if Victoria is guilty?" Robert asked. "Then all charges against you will be dropped, and Victoria will be charged with fraud, perjury, child endangerment, and probably more." Marcus looked up at his father. "Will you come home, Daddy?" Robert kissed his forehead. "I hope so, son. I hope so." They sat together in that small room. Robert did not let go of his sons, not even for a second. 2 hours felt like 2 days. But finally, the bailiff knocked on the door. "It is time. The judge is ready." Robert stood up. He held Marcus and Jason's hands. Grace held David and Kevin's hands. Thomas carried his briefcase. They walked back to courtroom 7 together. Everyone took their seats. Judge Sullivan came back in. Her face was very serious. Everyone stood up, then sat down again. A woman in a gray suit walked to the front. She was holding a tablet computer. "Your Honor, this is Dr. Laura Chen. She is our lead digital forensic investigator," Linda Marshall said. Judge Sullivan nodded. "Dr. Chen, what did you find?" Dr. Chen looked at her tablet. Then she looked at the judge. "Your Honor, we found significant evidence on Mrs. Victoria Williams' laptop computer." The courtroom became silent. Everyone was listening. Robert held his breath. Dr. Chen continued. "We found document editing software on her computer. This software is used to change and alter documents. We found the original financial documents belonging to Mr. Robert Williams, and we found the altered versions. Both sets of documents were saved in a hidden folder on her laptop." Judge Sullivan leaned forward. "She had both the real documents and the fake documents?" "Yes, Your Honor. The fake documents match exactly what was submitted to the police as evidence against Mr. Williams. The dates on the files show they were created and modified between September 1st and September 17th. The day before Mrs. Williams called the police was September 18th. The courtroom erupted with noise. People gasped and talked loudly. Judge Sullivan hit her gavel. "Quiet!" Dr. Chen looked at her tablet again. "We also examined her internet search history from the past month. Mrs. Williams searched for many concerning phrases." "What phrases?" the judge asked. Dr. Chen read from her tablet. "How to frame someone for fraud. How to fake financial documents. How to forge signatures. Can children testify in court? How to keep children quiet." Robert closed his eyes. He felt sick. Victoria had planned everything, every detail. Linda Marshall stood up. "Dr. Chen, is there any doubt that Mrs. Williams created these fake documents?" "No doubt at all. The evidence is clear. The software was installed on her computer on August 30th. The documents were edited multiple times. We can see every change she made. We can see the dates and times. Everything points to Mrs. Williams." Judge Sullivan wrote something down. "Is there anything else?" "Yes, Your Honor. We also examined her phone records and text messages. We found messages between Mrs. Williams and an unknown number. The messages show she was planning this scheme. In one message from September 15th, she wrote, "The plan is working. He has no idea. Soon, all the money will be mine." Victoria stood up. She was shaking. "That is not true. Someone else used my computer. Someone planted those files." Judge Sullivan stared at her. "Mrs. Williams, sit down." "No, this is wrong. I did not do this." Two police officers walked toward Victoria. Judge Sullivan's voice was loud and angry. "Mrs. Williams, sit down now, or I will have you removed." Victoria sat down. She was crying, but these were real tears now, tears of fear. She knew she was caught. Dr. Chen continued. "We also collected evidence from the mansion. We photographed the basement where the children were locked. We collected the broken padlock. We found fingerprints on the padlock. They belonged to Victoria Williams." Thomas Green stood up. "Your Honor, the evidence is overwhelming. My client was clearly framed by his wife. Victoria Williams had access to his office, his computer, and his personal files. She created fake documents to make it appear that Mr. Williams committed fraud. She did this to steal his money and his assets. And when she realized the children witnessed her crimes, she locked them in a basement to prevent them from testifying. Mr. Williams is innocent." Judge Sullivan looked at all the evidence on her desk. She looked at Robert. She looked at the four boys sitting quietly next to Grace. Then she looked at Victoria. The judge's voice was cold and hard. "I have heard enough. The evidence is clear and undeniable. Victoria Williams created false documents to frame her husband. She manipulated evidence. She committed fraud. And most disturbing of all, she endangered 4 innocent children." Judge Sullivan picked up her gavel. "I am hereby declaring Robert Williams innocent of all charges. All charges are dropped immediately. Mr. Williams, you are free to go." Robert's legs gave out. He fell to his knees. He put his face in his hands and sobbed. Thank you, God. Marcus, Jason, David, and Kevin ran to their father. They wrapped their arms around him. They were all crying. Grace was crying too. She covered her mouth with her hands. Thomas put his hand on Robert's shoulder. Judge Sullivan was not finished. She looked at Victoria. Her face was full of anger. Victoria Williams, stand up! Victoria stood slowly. Her face was white. Her hands were shaking. You are hereby charged with fraud, identity theft, perjury, and 4 counts of child endangerment. Your bail is set at $5 million. Your trial will be scheduled within 30 days. Victoria's legs buckled. She started to fall. The 2 police officers caught her arms. No, please, I made a mistake. I am sorry. Please. Victoria was screaming now. Her perfect makeup was running down her face. Officers, remove her from my courtroom, Judge Sullivan said. The officers pulled Victoria toward the side door. She tried to pull away. She looked back at Robert, but Robert was not looking at her. He was holding his sons. He was looking only at them. Robert, please, help me, please, Victoria screamed, but Robert did not answer. The officers pulled Victoria through the door. Her screams got quieter and then disappeared. Judge Sullivan stood up. She looked at Robert and his sons. Her face was softer now. Mr. Williams, I apologize on behalf of this court. You were wrongly accused. You lost 2 weeks of your life in jail. I am deeply sorry. Robert stood up. He wiped his eyes. Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you for believing my sons. Thank you for listening to the truth. The judge looked at Marcus, Jason, David, and Kevin. Boys, you did the right thing. You told the truth. You saved your father. Always remember this day. Remember that truth is the most powerful weapon we have. Yes, ma'am, Marcus said. The other boys nodded. Judge Sullivan hit her gavel one last time. This hearing is concluded. Mr. Williams, you are free to go home with your children. The courtroom erupted in applause. People stood up and clapped. Robert was crying. Grace was crying. The boys were crying. Thomas was smiling and clapping. The bailiff came over and removed the last of Robert's restraints. Robert's wrists were free. He was truly free. Robert knelt down. He opened his arms. All 4 boys ran into them. He held them so tight. He smelled their hair. He felt their small hearts beating against his chest. I love you, Robert whispered. I love you so much. You saved Daddy. You were so brave. We love you too, Daddy, Marcus said. Grace walked over to them. Robert looked up at her. He reached out his hand. Grace took it. Grace, I do not have words. You saved my life. You saved my children. Grace squeezed his hand. Those boys are my family. I told you I would do anything for them. I meant it. Robert stood up. He pulled Grace into a hug. You are not my employee anymore. You are family. You will always be family. Thomas came over. He was smiling. Robert, you are free. Completely free. All the charges are dropped. Your record will be cleared, and Victoria will pay for what she did. What will happen to her? Robert asked. She will go to prison. With all the evidence against her, she will be convicted. She will probably serve 10 years, maybe more. Robert nodded. He did not feel happy about it. He did not feel anything about Victoria anymore. She was gone from his life. She did not matter. What mattered was standing right in front of him, his 4 sons, Grace, his family. Can we go home now, Daddy? Kevin asked. Robert picked up Kevin. He kissed his cheek. Yes, baby. We are going home right now. They walked out of courtroom 7 together. Robert carried Kevin. Marcus held Robert's hand. Grace held Jason and David's hands. Thomas walked beside them. When they walked out of the courthouse, the sun was shining. It was a beautiful October afternoon. The sky was blue. Birds were singing. Reporters were waiting on the courthouse steps. They had cameras and microphones. They rushed toward Robert. Mr. Williams, how do you feel? What will you do now? Do you have anything to say? Robert stopped walking. He looked at the cameras. Grace and the boys stood next to him. Robert took a deep breath. "I feel grateful. The truth came out. I am innocent. The judge saw that. Most importantly, I want to thank Grace Turner." Robert put his arm around Grace. "This woman saved my life. She saved my children. She risked everything to bring them to that courtroom today. She is a hero. She is family." The reporters wrote everything down. Cameras flashed. Grace looked embarrassed, but Robert kept his arm around her. "Grace, I could never repay what you did for us," Robert said. He was looking at her, not at the cameras. "But I promise you, from this day forward, you will never have to worry about anything. You will always have a home. You will always be taken care of, because you are not my employee. You are my family." Grace started crying again. Robert hugged her. The reporters asked more questions, but Robert was done talking. He picked up Marcus in his other arm. Grace held Jason and David's hands. Thomas helped them get to Robert's car in the parking lot. Thomas had brought Robert's black car from the mansion. Robert put the boys in the back seat. He buckled their seat belts. Grace sat in the passenger seat. Thomas stood outside. "Robert, I will take care of all the legal paperwork. Everything will be cleared. You focus on your family." Robert shook Thomas's hand. "Thank you, Thomas, for everything, for believing me. You are a good man, Robert. I always knew that." Robert got into the driver's seat. He started the car. He looked in the rearview mirror at his 4 sons. They were smiling. Really smiling. For the first time in 2 weeks. Robert drove out of the parking lot. He drove down the streets of downtown Los Angeles. He got onto the freeway. He drove toward Beverly Hills, toward home. The boys talked and laughed in the back seat. Grace looked out the window. She was smiling too. Robert turned onto Sunset Boulevard. He drove up the hill. He saw the big white mansion. He pulled into the driveway. "We are home," Robert said. Robert turned off the car. He sat there for a moment, just looking at his house. This was his home, his son's home. He was finally back. The boys jumped out of the car and ran to the front door. Robert got out slowly. His legs felt weak. Grace walked beside him. "Are you okay?" Grace asked. "I am home," Robert said. His voice was quiet. "I did not think I would ever come home." Grace put her hand on his arm. "But you did, and everything will be okay now." Robert unlocked the front door. The boys ran inside, screaming and laughing. They ran through every room. They touched everything. They were home too. Robert walked into the living room. He sat down on the couch. Everything looked the same, but it felt different. He felt different. 2 weeks in jail changed him. Being accused of a crime he did not commit changed him. Almost losing his sons changed him. Marcus came and sat next to Robert. "Daddy, are you sad?" Robert put his arm around Marcus. "No, son, I am not sad. I am grateful. I am so grateful to be home with you." Jason, David, and Kevin came and sat on the couch too. They all pressed close to their father. Robert held them. He closed his eyes. This was all that mattered. His sons, his family. "Can we have pancakes for dinner?" David asked. Robert laughed. It felt good to laugh. "We can have whatever you want." "Pancakes!" all 4 boys yelled. Grace smiled. "I will make them. You all stay here and rest." Grace went to the kitchen. Robert could hear her opening cabinets and moving pans. The boys stayed on the couch with Robert. They did not want to leave him. They were afraid if they left, he might disappear again. "Daddy," Kevin said quietly, "is Miss Victoria coming back?" Robert's face became serious. He looked at Kevin. "No, son. Victoria is never coming back. She did very bad things. She has to go to jail now. She will never hurt us again." "Good," Marcus said. "I did not like her." "I know," Robert said. "I am sorry I brought her into our lives. I made a mistake. I should have listened to my heart. My heart told me something was wrong. but I did not listen. "It is okay, Daddy," Jason said. "We forgive you." Robert's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you, son." They sat together until Grace called them for dinner. The kitchen table was covered with pancakes, tall stacks of pancakes with butter and syrup. The boys ate like they had not eaten in weeks. They laughed and talked. The sadness was starting to leave their eyes. After dinner, Robert took the boys upstairs. He gave them a bath. He washed their hair gently. He helped them put on clean pajamas. Then he put them in their beds. "Daddy, will you stay with us?" Marcus asked. "Yes, I will stay right here until you fall asleep." Robert sat on the floor between their beds. He held Marcus's hand and Jason's hand. David and Kevin reached down from their beds to touch his shoulders. Robert sang them a song, the same song Angela used to sing, a soft, gentle song about stars and dreams. One by one, the boys fell asleep. Robert stayed there for a long time. He watched them breathe. He watched their small chests rise and fall. He thanked God for them. He thanked God for Grace. He thanked God for the truth. Finally, Robert stood up. He kissed each boy on the forehead. Then he went downstairs. Grace was in the living room. She had made tea. She was sitting on the couch, looking tired. "Grace, sit down," Robert said. "I need to talk to you." Grace looked worried. "Is something wrong?" "No, nothing is wrong, but I need to say something important." Robert sat down across from her. "Grace, you have worked for me for 10 years. You helped Angela when she was sick. You stayed with me after she died. You raised my boys when I could not. And today, you saved my life." "Robert, you do not need to thank me again." Robert held up his hand. "Please, let me finish. I have been thinking about this for 2 weeks. Sitting in that jail cell, I realized something. You are not my employee. You never were. You are family. You have always been family." Grace's eyes filled with tears. Robert continued, "Starting today, I am doubling your salary. But that is not all. I am putting your name on the deed to this house. This mansion belongs to you, too. This is your home, not because you work here, but because you are family." Grace covered her mouth with her hand. She started crying. "Robert, I cannot accept that." "Yes, you can, and you will." Robert leaned forward. "Grace, you saved my children. You risked everything to bring them to that courthouse. You broke into my house. You drove on the shoulder of the freeway. You could have been arrested, but you did it anyway because you love my sons." "Of course I love them," Grace said. "They are my babies." "I know. And I want to make sure you are always taken care of. I want to make sure you always have a home. I want to make sure you never have to worry about money or security. You are part of this family, forever." Grace stood up. She walked over to Robert and hugged him. She cried on his shoulder. Thank you so much." Robert hugged her back. "No, thank you." That night, Robert could not sleep. He lay in his bed staring at the ceiling. He thought about Victoria. He thought about how she tricked him, how she used his loneliness against him, how she pretended to love him. Robert got up. He walked to his office. He sat at his desk. He looked at the drawers where Victoria had stolen his documents. He felt angry, but also sad. He had trusted her. He had let her into his life, into his home, around his children. Robert made a promise to himself. He would never ignore his instincts again. He would never be desperate for love again. He would protect his family no matter what. The next morning, Robert made breakfast for his sons. Scrambled eggs and toast. The boys were happy and loud. They were starting to feel normal again. Robert's phone rang. It was Thomas Green. "Robert, I wanted to update you. Victoria's trial is scheduled for November 15th. That is 6 weeks from now. The prosecution will need you and the boys to testify." Robert's stomach tightened. "The boys have to testify?" "Yes, they are key witnesses, but do not worry. The prosecutor will prepare them. They will make it as easy as possible." "Okay, we will be there. Also, I have been in contact with your business partners. They all believe you now. They have seen the evidence. They want to meet with you next week to discuss moving forward." Robert felt relief. "Thank you, Thomas, for everything." "You are welcome, my friend." Over the next few days, Robert started rebuilding his life. He met with his business partners. He showed them the evidence that cleared his name. They apologized for doubting him. They shook his hand. They wanted to continue working together. Robert also met with a therapist. The therapist's name was Dr. Sarah Mitchell. She specialized in helping children who experienced trauma. "Your sons went through something very difficult," Dr. Mitchell said. "Being locked in a basement is terrifying for anyone, but especially for young children. They will need time to process what happened." "What can I do?" Robert asked. "Love them. Be patient with them. If they have nightmares or become afraid of the dark, that is normal. Just reassure them they are safe, and bring them to see me once a week. I will help them work through their feelings." Robert brought the boys to see Dr. Mitchell. She had a kind face and a gentle voice. She played games with them. She asked them questions about their feelings. The boys liked her. After 3 sessions, Dr. Mitchell told Robert the boys were doing well. "They are resilient. They have each other. And they have you and Grace. That is powerful. They will heal." Robert also focused on his company. He worked hard to rebuild his reputation. He made donations to charities. He started a scholarship fund in Angela's name for single parents who wanted to go to college. He wanted to do good things. He wanted to make his life count for something. 3 weeks after the hearing, Robert received a phone call. It was Linda Marshall, the prosecutor. "Mr. Williams, I wanted to give you an update on Victoria's case. She has refused to take a plea deal. She wants to go to trial. She still claims she is innocent." Robert was not surprised. Victoria was arrogant. She thought she could talk her way out of anything. "What does that mean for us?" Robert asked. "It means the trial will proceed on November 15th. You and your sons will need to testify. I know this is difficult, but your testimony is crucial." "We will be there," Robert said. "Thank you. I will be in touch with more details." Robert hung up the phone. He sat down at the kitchen table. Grace was making lunch. "What is wrong?" Grace asked. "Victoria's trial is in 3 weeks. The boys have to testify." Grace sat down. "How do you feel about that? I do not want to put them through it. They have been through enough, but I know they need to tell the truth. The judge needs to hear what Victoria did." "Those boys are strong," Grace said. "They will be okay. And we will be there with them." Robert nodded. "Yes, we will be there together." That evening, Robert sat down with Marcus, Jason, David, and Kevin. They were in the living room playing with toy cars. "Boys, I need to talk to you about something." The boys looked up. They could tell it was serious. "In 3 weeks, we have to go back to the courthouse. There will be another hearing. This time, it is for Miss Victoria. She will be there. And you will need to tell the judge what she did. You will need to tell the truth about what you saw." Marcus nodded. "We can do that, Daddy. We are not scared." "Are you sure?" Robert asked. "Because it is okay if you are scared. What she did was scary." "We are a little scared," Jason said. "But we will be brave. We will tell the truth." David and Kevin nodded. Robert pulled all 4 boys into a hug. "I am so proud of you. You are the bravest boys I know." That night, Robert tucked the boys into bed. He sang them their song. He stayed with them until they fell asleep. Then he went to his room. He lay in bed and thought about the trial. He thought about seeing Victoria again. He did not want to see her, but he would. Because the truth mattered. Justice mattered. His sons mattered. Robert closed his eyes. Tomorrow he would wake up and make breakfast. He would take the boys to school. He would go to work. He would live his life because he was free, and he would never take that freedom for granted again. 3 weeks passed quickly. It was now November 15th, the day of Victoria's trial. Robert woke up early. He made pancakes for the boys. They ate quietly. They knew today would be difficult. Grace helped the boys get dressed. They wore nice clothes, clean pants and button shirts. They looked handsome but nervous. "Remember," Grace said, "just tell the truth. That is all you need to do." They drove to the courthouse in downtown Los Angeles. Thomas met them outside. Linda Marshall was there too. "Good morning," Linda said. She knelt down in front of the boys. "Thank you for being here. I know this is hard, but you are very brave. When you go inside, you will sit in a chair. I will ask you questions. You just answer honestly. Can you do that?" The boys nodded. They walked into the courtroom together. It was the same courtroom, courtroom 7. But this time, Robert was not wearing handcuffs. He sat in the front row with Grace. The boys sat between them. Victoria was brought in by 2 officers. She wore an orange jail jumpsuit. Her blonde hair was pulled back. She had no makeup on. She looked very different from the beautiful woman Robert married. Victoria looked at Robert. Her eyes were cold and angry. Robert did not look away. He stared back at her. He was not afraid anymore. Judge Sullivan entered. Everyone stood up. Then they sat down. The trial began. Linda Marshall stood up. "Your Honor, the evidence in this case is overwhelming. Victoria Williams committed fraud. She framed her husband to steal his money. She locked 4 children in a basement to keep them from testifying. We have physical evidence, we have digital evidence, and we have eyewitness testimony from the children." Victoria's lawyer stood up. He was a thin man with gray hair. "Your Honor, my client maintains her innocence. She claims the evidence was planted. She claims the children are confused." Judge Sullivan looked annoyed. "We will hear all the evidence. Call your first witness, Ms. Marshall." Linda called Dr. Laura Chen. Dr. Chen explained the evidence from Victoria's computer again. The fake documents, the internet searches, the text messages, everything. Then Linda called Grace. Grace told the judge about finding the boys locked in the basement. She described their tears, their fear, their trauma. Then Linda called Marcus. Marcus walked to the witness stand. He looked so small sitting in the big chair. A bailiff brought a Bible. Marcus put his small hand on it. "Do you promise to tell the truth?" the bailiff asked. "Yes, sir," Marcus said. His voice was clear and strong. Linda walked over to Marcus. She smiled at him. "Marcus, can you tell the judge what you saw on the night of September 10th? Marcus looked at the judge. Then he looked at Victoria. "I woke up to get water. It was late. I walked downstairs. I saw a light in my daddy's office. I looked through the door. Miss Victoria was there. She had papers in her hands, Daddy's papers. She was looking at them. Then she put them in a folder and took them." "Did she see you?" "No, I was hiding. I was scared." "Why were you scared?" "Because I knew she was doing something bad. Mommy always told me stealing is wrong." Victoria's lawyer stood up. "Objection. The child is making assumptions." "Overruled," Judge Sullivan said. "Continue, Ms. Marshall." Linda asked Marcus more questions. Marcus answered everyone clearly. He did not get confused. He did not change his story. Then Jason testified, then David, then Kevin. All 4 boys told the same story. They saw Victoria steal the papers, they saw her on the computer, and they told how she locked them in the basement. When Kevin finished, he started crying. "She was so mean to us. She said our daddy was bad. But our daddy is good. She is the bad one." The judge's face was full of anger. She looked at Victoria with disgust. Victoria's lawyer tried to defend her. He asked the boys questions. He tried to confuse them, but the boys did not get confused. They told the truth. Always the truth. The trial lasted 3 days. On the 3rd day, the jury went to a private room to decide. They came back 2 hours later. The jury leader stood up. "We find the defendant, Victoria Williams, guilty on all charges." Victoria screamed, "No, this is not fair. I did not do this." But no one listened. Judge Sullivan hit her gavel. "Victoria Williams, You are sentenced to 10 years in prison for fraud, identity theft, perjury, and 4 counts of child endangerment. You will serve your time at the California Women's Correctional Facility. Officers, remove her." 2 officers grabbed Victoria's arms. She tried to pull away. She looked at Robert one last time. "I hope you are happy." Robert did not answer. He just held his son's hands. Victoria was dragged out of the courtroom screaming. The doors closed behind her. She was gone. Robert closed his eyes. It was over. Finally over. Now it was January. 3 months had passed since Victoria's trial. Life at the mansion on Sunset Boulevard was completely different now. It was happy. It was peaceful. It was full of love. Robert woke up every morning at 6:30. He made breakfast for his sons, pancakes, eggs, toast, whatever they wanted. He never missed a morning, not one. Grace had moved into the big bedroom on the 2nd floor, the yellow one. Robert had it painted and decorated just for her. She had her own bathroom, her own space, but she was always with the family. She cooked with Robert. She played with the boys. She was home. Marcus, Jason, David, and Kevin were thriving. They went to kindergarten at Beverly Hills Elementary School. Their teacher, Mrs. Lopez, said they were smart and kind. They had friends. They were happy. On a sunny Saturday morning in January, Robert made an announcement at breakfast. "Boys, today is a special day. We are going to the beach." The boys cheered, "The beach! The beach!" They all got ready. Robert packed sandwiches and fruit. Grace packed towels and sunscreen. They got into Robert's car and drove to Santa Monica Beach. The beach was beautiful. The sun was shining. The ocean was blue. Families were everywhere building sand castles and playing in the water. Robert spread out blankets on the sand. Grace sat down and watched the boys run toward the ocean. They screamed and laughed as the waves touched their feet. Robert sat down next to Grace. He watched his sons play. Marcus was building a sandcastle. Jason was collecting shells. David was digging a giant hole. Kevin was singing a song about the sea. "They are so happy," Grace said. "Yes," Robert said. "We all are." Grace looked at Robert. "Do you ever think about her? About Victoria?" Robert was quiet for a moment. "Sometimes, but not with anger. I think about what I learned. I learned to trust my instincts. I learned that family is not about blood. It is about who shows up, who stays, who fights for you." Grace smiled. "That is beautiful. You showed up, Grace. When everything fell apart, you were there. You saved us." Grace reached over and squeezed his hand. We saved each other. They sat in comfortable silence watching the boys play. Marcus ran over. He was covered in sand. He was smiling so big. "Daddy, Miss Grace, come see my sand castle." Robert and Grace stood up. They walked to where Marcus had built a tall sand castle. Jason had decorated it with shells. David had dug a moat around it. Kevin was singing to it. "This is beautiful," Robert said. "You boys did an amazing job." "We worked together," Marcus said. "Just like you taught us, Daddy." Robert's heart felt full. He looked at his 4 sons. He looked at Grace. This was his family. This was everything that mattered. They spent the whole day at the beach. They played in the sand. They splashed in the ocean. They ate sandwiches and laughed. They were a family. That evening, they drove home. The boys fell asleep in the back seat. Grace looked out the window at the sunset. Robert drove slowly, not wanting the day to end. When they got home, Robert carried Kevin inside. Grace helped Jason and David. Marcus walked by himself, holding Robert's hand. They ordered pizza for dinner. The boys ate in the living room while watching a movie about dinosaurs. Grace and Robert sat on the porch. The sun was setting. The sky was orange and pink. "Robert," Grace said, "I want to thank you for everything you did for me, for making me part of this family." "You were always part of this family, Grace. I just made it official." Grace smiled. "I lost my daughter many years ago. I thought I would never feel like a mother again. But these boys gave that back to me. You gave that back to me." Robert put his arm around Grace's shoulders. "And you gave me faith, faith that good people still exist, that love still exists." They sat together as the sun disappeared behind the hills. Inside, they could hear the boys laughing at the movie. Later, Robert put the boys to bed. He tucked them in one by one. He sang their song, the song Angela used to sing, the song about stars and dreams. When he finished, Marcus looked up at him. "Daddy, I love our family." Robert kissed his forehead. "Me too, son, me too." He turned off the light and walked to the door. He looked back at his 4 sons. They were safe. They were loved. They were home. Robert went downstairs. Grace was cleaning up the kitchen. Robert helped her. They worked together in comfortable silence. When they finished, Grace said goodnight and went to her room. Robert walked through the mansion. He turned off lights. He locked doors. He checked windows. He made sure his family was safe. Then Robert went to his bedroom. He lay in his bed. He looked at the photo of Angela on his nightstand. He touched the glass. "We are okay, Angela," Robert whispered. "The boys are okay. I am okay. Grace is with us. We are a family. A real family." Robert closed his eyes. He thought about everything that had happened. The pain, the betrayal, the fear, but also the courage, the truth, the love. He realized that family is not perfect. Family is not about blood. Family is about who stays when everything falls apart, who fights for you, who loves you no matter what. Grace stayed. His sons fought. They loved each other through the darkness, and they came out stronger. Robert smiled. For the first time in years, he felt completely at peace. He felt whole. He felt blessed. Tomorrow he would wake up. He would make breakfast. He would laugh with his sons. He would work with Grace. He would live his life with gratitude, because he was free. He was home. He was loved. And that was everything. If you enjoyed today's video, I'm sure you'll love the next one. Don't waste time. Just click on the screen.